6/12/2019 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, something I should do first. We'll appoint Anthony and Cheryl as full voting members to make sure we have a quorum for the evening. So with that, I'm sorry, we'll go back to number one. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Great. Any revisions, comments, issues?
Like to make a motion to accept the minutes as is.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Item number 2, new public hearing, 132 Forest Street and Courier Ave, SJK Construction, a special permit for a 2-family dwelling.
Nick Joanne here on behalf of SJK Construction, the developer in connection with a proposal to construct a duplex home at the property known as 132 Forest Street. The property is actually going to end up being entered off of Courier, so it's going to end up having a Courier address by the post office, I mean, not by the post, by the assessor when it ends up happening, because as you can see on your plans, the entrance will now be off of Courier instead of Forest. The original home had been part of the initial subdivision, and at first, I had even indicated in the application that I thought that the frontage was actually only 106 feet, but it actually is 125, because you measure to the center of the radius, and it's 125 feet, so it has proper frontage all over the place. I did meet with the building inspector, though. There's no zoning relief necessary, but notwithstanding, in that application, I had written 106 because, because Greg Bernard, who is the site surveyor for this particular property, didn't realize that Middleton allows you to go to the radius point, and that's why. And it made sense, because at the time the project was approved for the subdivision, this lot was part of it. So this lot had been, in 1994, somebody bought, like 10 acres, and then her lot combined them, subdivided, and created 12 lots plus her existing lot.
So I'd seen that, and I did ask him to write a letter today, and I was out in the field, and he couldn't get the plan in time.
Not even a need.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because it is 125 feet.
All right.
So it's 106, take half of the 40, and there you go, 126 feet frontage on Forest, and way over 125 feet on Courier. That being said, so this particular project, we are looking to construct a duplex. The property is currently improved by a single-family 3-bedroom home. We're proposing to put in a 4-bedroom duplex, so 2 bedrooms in each unit. We did provide to you schematics of the architectural plan. We also provided for you the site plan. As you can see on the site plan, the property is completely compliant. It has already gone through, well, actually, an NOI has been filed, because you can see where the wetlands are in the property. There are quite a bit of them in the back. And we are trying to honor that 25-foot no disturb, and we're still in the process. Are we finished yet, Greg?
We've had the public hearing, we're awaiting a DEP file number, and then the order of conditions will be forthcoming.
So essentially, the Conservation Commission has approved. We just simply have to finalize it with the documentation. So, as I said, the particular property is about 81,000, almost 82,000 square feet. The zoning district is 40,000, so the requirement is that the project have at least 80,000 square feet, which it does in order to support a duplex. This particular structure, because it's a 3-bedroom home, essentially it's going to have probably the identical type of burden that and because it's 2 2-bedroom homes, it'll have basically the same burden as the 3-bedroom single-family would, as far as infrastructure burdens on the town. This particular property, as I said, complies with all setbacks, all dimensional, all density requirements. It is very consistent with the neighborhood. When you go out there, it's all residential homes, and they're pretty new in terms of Middleton, because this home happens to be an 1842 home, but the homes around it are 94 vintage. So basically what will end up happening as a result of the construction of this home is it will end up complying with stormwater management, which is wonderful. So now you'll have a home that will actually put in basically structures to support it, because as you know, when you pull a building permit, you have to satisfy the Middleton regulations. In addition to that, it will have a fully Title V compliant septic system. That system has been designed and reviewed by the Board of Health, and that is for a 4-bedroom septic system, i.e. a 4-bedroom duplex. Based on the criteria, you do need to prove, as I said, that you have twice the area. You need to demonstrate that the particular property is consonant with the area, which it is. Generally, the homes around it are, because they're the 94 vintage, are probably about the same size footprint. This footprint is about, it's between 1,300 and 1,400. If you look at just living area on the first floor, because the first floor has a garage, it's only about 1,000 square feet of living on the first floor. So you have a total footprint of no more than 3,000 square feet with the garage, everything included for both units. The total living space is, a little bit above 2,200 to 2,400 square feet. And again, both duplexes do have a garage attached. So as I said, given the fact that we are upgrading the systems, if you will, we are providing a Title V compliant system, we would suggest to the board that we actually are benefiting the natural environment because we are protecting that. And in addition, because we've gone before the Conservation Commission, they've actually opined that this particular project isn't going to otherwise interfere or negatively impact the wetland.
These are two bedrooms?
Yes, two-bedroom units, Mr. Tierno. So what I'm asking is for the board to issue findings that would support the fact that any type of adverse, I don't see there as being any adverse impacts, but any adverse impacts are actually outweighed by the beneficial impacts of this particular home, i.e. the upgrades, the stormwater compliance, the increase to tax revenue to the town, because a single-family home does not generate as many taxes as will a duplex, nor will it, does a single-family home generate as much excise tax, which is all revenue to the town. And based on those facts, I'd ask that this board issue a special permit to approve the construction of the duplex. And I do have a draft for you for this.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And we also have,
Very well.
thank you.
Thank you.
That's her draft, and then Katrina also prepared, so that's got a couple copies there.
Oh, right.
Our own
I put that on mine
version
too.
that we could implement
I wanted to make sure
if
I
we wanted
brought
to
it
put
up right away
the
to you.
conditions.
I have a question as a suburban novice. Is planning a septic for a two-bedroom applicable?
Supposed to ask it out loud.
Yeah, so
sorry.
we'll, what I'll do is once they're done presenting, we'll open it up to all of us. We can ask them questions or each other questions or whatever we want to do. Jill? I'm sorry, you all done with the presentation?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I just want to open it up to the board members to go ahead and ask questions and,
My only question is, for starters, I'll comment that I love you getting the driveway off of Forest Street. That's awesome. But as somebody whose family has expanded a lot in the past, and I've started to take up, the study and this and that and converting them into bedrooms, is, as a novice, is a septic that's geared for a two-bedroom sufficient when, if a family grows, there's get more bodies in there and.
I
well,
can,
it has to comply with the building inspector and the health department are going to dictate by code what they're going to put in.
Well, I suppose my question is, what if some of these bedrooms are converted, or some of these rooms are converted into bedrooms, and therefore, would the code change at all because of additional living quarters in each room?
Well, if they go through the proper channels,
Yeah.
it would have to, yeah. I mean, you would have to have a sufficient septic system big enough to have a
That's-
certain number of bedrooms.
Right.
I mean, could they convert it illegally? Yeah, of course, but no, the general rule is if you go for a permit and you put up a wall or you do any of those things, you need to comply with that.
And the Board of Health has the authority
Yeah.
to make decisions on that basis, and so we don't have to worry about that kind of thing.
Okay.
For the
Yeah,
planning board.
yeah. No, it's a good question, but it's kind of out of our purview, but it's a good thing to know, absolutely.
but the Board of Health does restrict us. There's no ability to expand without going back and filing for a new design and actually adding to the system.
Yep. Good question. Any other, actually, I did have a question.
Please.
Are these gonna be rentals or condos?
I mean, at this point, I believe condos, unless something happens to the market.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? So we have
You have correspondence?
correspondence, yeah.
And you should ask the public too. if you
Yeah.
have any questions.
What we'll do is we'll read the correspondence, and then
Okay.
we'll open it up.
There's a study on the second floor. Kind of to the question about, I mean, it looks to be approximately the size of a bedroom. Yeah.
If you had an
But it's
extra
not-
couple of
yeah.
kids, you could do that. and,
Put a door
you know,
there.
Yeah.
So-
I guess the question originally wasn't about expanding the structure itself, just retasking the rooms that are inside to accommodate the bodies.
So if you
The
notice,
study on the second floor looks, you know, it might be, I don't know how, dimensionally how big it is, but it
it's 11 feet.
looks
I mean,
and
it's-
feels like a bedroom.
I mean, it does, but it's not. I mean, honestly, the interior of the home, yeah, I can't tell you what'll happen, but I can assure you that it's a two-bedroom, that they're not going to be allowed to expand or do anything else to it. I mean, when you look at the first floor, the intent was to put a master bedroom on the first floor.
Yeah, I
It's
don't think-
possible that somebody will come in and not utilize that and actually put all the bedrooms upstairs. That's possible, too. I don't know.
All right, no, it's-
Mr. York, I can't even answer it, yeah.
all right.
I can assure you that when he sells it, he can't sell it as any more than a
Listed as
two-bedroom.
three-bedroom.
Right.
Yeah. And that is a firm restriction.
We just have to call the guy more often to empty it out. Pretty much it. Okay.
We have correspondence, if you don't mind reading that.
Sure.
It's all in here, too, if you want. Make it easier. There you go.
This is from Kristen Kent, Middleton Conservation Agent, sent to Katrina O'Leary. Katrina, the Conservation Commission approved the project at their meeting on 6/4 with the following conditions. If the project connects to town water, then they must decommission the existing well. The property may not have an irrigation well. This condition continues in perpetuity. Thank you.
No problem.
Drought-tolerant native landscaping must be used. The large trees on this site must be maintained, and wetland signage must be installed and remain in perpetuity. If you have any questions, please let me know. From James DeGian Vittorio, Middleton Police Department, I see no issues for the police department. And from Brad Swanson, all good.
Brad Swanson
He's the
is
assessor.
the building assessor.
Building assessor. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Okay, so we'll open it up to we'll open up to the public, so any additional public comments, speak in opposition or in favor? Seeing none, what is the wish of the board on this one? I think if we reference, where is it? Staff report, there it is.
So the board first must make the appropriate findings, and a draft of those findings that have to be made are before you. And then after, if you approve the findings, then someone can motion to approve the special permit for the duplex.
So anyone that makes the motion for the findings, we can either use the findings and decision that were submitted by the petitioner, or we can read the findings that were prepared by Katrina for the board.
I would suggest using the petitioners because she's updated it to delete the part about the frontage that wasn't
106,
adequate on
that's really
Forest, because it is adequate. So you can use the petitioner's motion.
Yeah, I think that would be.
Katrina, I want to bring something up, not to this specific thing, but a point has been made by public in the past about the petitioners offering the findings and decision. Why do we do it that way?
First of all, they're the ones that are supposed to prove to the board that they have met all the criteria. You could do it the opposite way and look through all the criteria and ask them, criteria by criteria, how do you meet this? But she has put it in a memorandum in the application that spells out how she feels she meets the criteria. If the board agrees that she meets, or the applicant meets the criteria as they have spelled it out in the memorandum, then that's put in the draft decision.
And for the folks at home, we could revise these, we could add,
Yes.
we can add things, we can say that no, we don't find or agree with this, and we want a different version of it, and we can type up a version, or the petitioner can change it and submit it.
Right.
Because I've had questions in the past about why petitioner submits these, so I wanted to,
So put it
Put
this
that
way.
out there.
When I have drafted them in the past, I leave them blank up to the board, and it's a little more difficult. And the only difference between my draft and the petitioner's draft, if we're talking about Attorney Mann, is that she fills in how she feels she meets the criteria. It's up to the board if they agree that she meets, or her applicant meets the criteria in that way.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Jill, it's like a proposed order. When you submit pleadings to the court, you're submitting it with a proposed order.
And you always do
The
that,
court-
yeah. So
it's
the
just
attorney
standard.
always prepares, submits, and then it's subject to review, but I do it in every community I present in, yeah.
So it's not that we have to accept it as a whole. We can strike out what we can add and change. I think it
Yes.
just makes it easier
Yeah.
if we accept the memorandum and then to accept the proposed findings.
Right.
yeah, I wanted to put that out there and have this discussion out in the open, not specifically about this particular petitioner or this particular council, but just in general, the question has come before us in other fashions of why we do this, why we do this way, and why we accept this from a petitioner. So I want to just put it out there for anybody that's interested, why it's done this way, and that we don't necessarily have to abide by this, and we actually do read it. And we received this in advance, so this wasn't, other than the minor change that was made, the one change, and that was discussed tonight out in the open too, so. Thank you for humoring me.
So in the document provided, like the Conservation Commission made some recommendations. The Conservation's recommendations are really hard to enforce.
Well, okay, so in Kristen's letter
Right.
to the board, those were the conditions that they put in their order of conditions, right? So they're already in the conservation's order of conditions, and she was just letting the board know that we have put these conditions on it.
Okay. But
Paul yells at me when I don't do this. If your request is, do I mind having a condition that says that you incorporate those conditions, I don't, you can.
no, but I mean, because the Conservation Commission's
no-
conditions, they can't enforce them.
You
mean-
most certainly, this board,
So there's no kind of, there's no way to ensure, I mean, they can hound the builder, but they can't, they have really no recourse.
But what you can do is you can
We could put
say,
'em in here.
I want to add a special
Yeah.
condition, and the special condition would be that we,
Comply
if I
with
can get
their-
that letter, I can then download and add the special condition, and that's exactly what we do during this particular process, because that's a good
Yeah.
point. And we do it all the time in zoning board hearings. So when you see it, Katrina has a form, a general list of conditions that we always incorporate.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's a section literally that says special conditions, and those are the things that the board mentions during the hearing. I write them down, and then at the end, we discuss them, we go through, and I add them
Yeah.
all. So
Okay.
that, if this board chooses, when you make your motion, you would just make the motion, and then you would say, subject to the special condition aforementioned, which would be the incorporation of the conditions
Yeah,
from the
okay.
Conservation Commission.
Okay? Is there anybody that would like to make a motion, or do we have any more discussion?
I guess my only question is going back to that email from Kristen Kent. Large trees on the site must be maintained. What are we defining as large? Are we saying that the two
That's
largest
the
trees?
Conservation Commission's condition. So it's
Right,
a
but
separate
the-
board that has that condition.
But we would have to include those in our, to approve a special permit, no?
You can just have a statement that says, one condition of the planning board's approval is to comply with all the conditions
As set forth
as
by the
set forth.
confirmation, or
Just, if you
yeah,
don't mind, if I,
conservation.
Mr. DeGore, we actually did mark the trees, so we
Okay.
do know what they are as part of the condition. So in the order, that is incorporated, so when you incorporate their conditions, compliance, when you incorporate a condition, the compliance is required for your permit,
Yep.
it's incorporated in the whole.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to support the applicant's position that any adverse effects resulting from the development of the property as a two-family home will not outweigh the beneficial impacts with the following items. No, I don't know how to say that, but with the following items noted. The unit satisfies the community's need for a smaller or moderately priced home. The property and duplex comply with the minimum area, dimensional heights, and density requirements for the R1B district. The property has adequate access that ensures the safety of vehicular and pedestrian traffic. The property has adequate access to all the necessary utilities. The property has been designed to minimize the impacts of the natural environment. The redevelopment of the property will create an economic benefit that will offset any financial demands of the duplex. The residential use is consonant with the neighborhood character, and that the duplex complies with the Conservation Commission's request as noted in, I don't know what the date of the email was, but
It's June 13th.
the June 13th email from the Conservation Commission.
Can I suggest one thing? That you maybe incorporate all the reasons why it meets all those criteria that are spelled out underneath it, because you read the criteria, but you didn't actually read how it meets the criteria.
That's a lot of words.
I know.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, you could just incorporate them.
Yeah. So I would add that we will incorporate all the rationale as noted in the special permit findings and decision letter provided on July 10th by Attorney Mann.
Being items 1 through 7.
Well, now we have an 8.
1 through 8, I'm sorry, yes, because we're adding the additional, right? All right, do we have a second on the motion on the floor?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll do, you want to revise that and then send it over to Katrina and I'll sign it?
Now you have to vote on the special permit.
Oh, yeah, sorry, you're right.
So what you just did is you made the motion to meet all the
To
criteria.
meet all the criteria.
And now that you've met the criteria, you can vote to issue the special permit.
So I'll entertain a motion on action item 2. Anybody want to make a motion on that to,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the special permit to construct the two-family residential dwelling at 132 Forest Street without any other conditions.
Seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 I apologize, who seconded? I just didn't see it.
Brian Carroll.
Thank you, appreciate it.
You want to do the
So
revised?
I'll revise the decision, and then what I do is I send it back to Ms. O'Leary. She reviews to confirm, to ensure that it's been done properly, and then she'll distribute to the board. And then I'll also provide an 11 by 17 to the plan that you can initial, so that the file is always complete and you have the documentation, you know.
Okay.
Thank you very much, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, let me just go down here. Item number 3, approval not required plans, 67, 69, 75 Forest Street. Matthew Nadworthy.
Good evening, my name is Greg Bernard. Coolis Engineering, here to represent the Nadwarnies. There has been an A&R, excuse me, in front of this board last fall. This is a revised plan. Due to some design issues that have arisen, we have found that we now have to incorporate a change in lot line for the lot that has the existing dwelling, number 67. The 3 lots shown, Lot 2B, 3A, and Lot 4, have the required area and frontage required in this zone. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions the planning board may have.
So we have a note here that says that the shift in lot line does not create a potential side lot, excuse me, does create a potential side lot zoning violation on 67 Forest. The building commissioner is aware of this and has sent a letter to the board in regards to this potential zoning violation.
It's in your
Do we have
correspondence.
you have the correspondence on that?
Sure. I can find it.
Oh, it's all tabbed in
Oh,
that,
okay.
I'm sorry.
easier. Should be.
From Scott Fitzpatrick, Building Commissioner, Town of Middleton, to Katrina O'Leary on July 10th. I reviewed the proposed A&R plan prepared by John DeCoulis dated July 8th, 2019 for 75 Forest Street, 69 Forest Street, and 67 Forest Street. I'm aware that proposal contains adequate frontage and lot area for all 3 lots as required to be endorsed by the planning board as an A&R plan. I further understand, once recorded, the existing structure located on 65 Forest Street will be in violation of the side yard setback on the left side of the structure, and the intention of the homeowner, as noted on the plan, is to remove the garage structure, which will eliminate the setback violation. As zoning enforcement officer for the town of Middleton, in accordance with the Middleton zoning bylaw, Chapter 235, and Mass General Law 40A, I will ensure the violation is removed in a timely manner. Respectfully, Scott Fitzpatrick.
So, since the plan, even with the potential zoning violation, does not constitute a subdivision, the plan is still technically entitled to endorsement as a plan not requiring subdivision approval. However, we can place language under the endorsement of the plan, should we choose. We could state that the above endorsement is not a determination that the plan is in compliance with zoning requirements, as a warning to future prospective buyers of either lot.
So, Mr. Chairman, sometimes the planning board chooses to have notes put on the plan. They know that the plan is entitled to endorsement as an A&R plan, but you have the right to put a note that would, first of all, warn the building inspector of any possible zoning violation, and we don't want him to miss it and issue a building permit on something that has a zoning violation, and also to any prospective homeowner. In this case, we know that the building commissioner knows all about this, and he's going to take care of it. You could put a note on the plan that the kind of note I mentioned, and you can put it right under your endorsement, and that would hopefully warn any future homeowner, although I think that they have people lined up to buy it already, and everyone is very aware of the situation right now. So it's up to you if you want to put the note. I actually feel comfortable with just knowing that the building inspector knows about it.
Yeah, I hate to put that on something and then they tear this thing down and it's a moot point, right? I mean,
Well, some towns, and we were talking about this before the meeting, I worked in Raleigh before I came here. As one of their requirements for an A&R plan, they ask that that note be put on every single A&R plan, because the planning board's endorsement is no indication that it conforms to zoning. And they want to make that clear to any future buyer of a lot, that it may have a zoning violation on it.
Okay. Well, what is the wish of the board? So do we want to add the additional language on the plan, or do we want to just endorse it without the language? I open it up for everybody.
I think from a perspective of the board, it's safer than sorry to put it down. I think we should put it on the plan.
In that
That's
case,
just my
I'm
opinion.
prepared to add the plan. I have actually printed it out, so I have a template, and I can write the note underneath the names if the board wishes.
I think it should be added.
I think it should be on there as well.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to endorse the plan as one not requiring approval under the subdivision control law and include that the endorsement is not a determination that the plan is in compliance with zoning requirements.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're just gonna write it right on there, Katrina?
Yep.
Okay. Then we'll just sign the plan and move on to the next one.
I actually did have a stamp in the office that said this, and the board never used it, and so I finally threw it out. Maybe I should get one again.
I think it's good
You know what?
consumer protection.
I think we would probably be right to order another one of those stamps.
Yeah.
I think it's something we should be doing.
It may not be pretty, but
As long as it's legible.
let's start down the side. Dave's July 10th.
Buyers lined up. It's weird. So if that person walks away, then it's good for them to see.
Must be a Brian.
What's that? Is it garage, or is it they're gonna knock it down? Saying that they're gonna knock it down before it's,
We don't all have to individually date it. There's a place with the date on the top.
Can I turn this off? Is anyone,
No, it's fine.
it's kind of loud.
Oh, that's it.
I thought that was the air conditioner.
Right.
Oh, I brought it right here.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Just in case. I'd like to thank the board and Katrina for getting me on the agenda in such a timely manner.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, moving on, item 4, the other business, Lewis Drive, return of refundable fees.
Okay, no one is here for this tonight, so if I could explain it.
Sure.
Okay, so they were before, Lewis Drive was before you last month, Rich Sokoloff. We returned his letter of credit, or the money he had with the treasurer. So back when Lewis Drive was first before the board, we had something called refundable fees that were returned when the town accepted the road or when it was finished and we had received the as-bills. This is one of the last subdivisions. I don't think they're, East Meadow. And Ridgewood will have refundable fees too. But Rich Sokolow was actually a new owner of the subdivision. The original owner, Macaulay, has asked for the refundable fees back. I just wanted to make sure that there was no agreement between Rich Sokolow to get the refundable fees, and so that's why you have an email from him saying, I have no interest in the refundable fees. So they can be returned to the original applicant in this case.
Do we need to read is it an email? Yeah, it's an email.
You can read that.
Should we read that into the record?
You don't really need to.
Is it entered in as part of?
If you all read it in your packet, it's just a simple email saying he has no interest in it.
It's public record?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, as long as it was submitted as part of the public record, I don't think we have to read it. But if
Right.
somebody was so interested, or if there was a question of whether or not it's there.
Yeah, Mr. John Macaulay. So you can vote to return the $15,700 plus interest in refundable fees to Mr. John Macaulay. And then with that, I will draft a letter, you will sign it, we'll send it to the treasurer, and they will return the refundable fees.
Okay. So we'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to direct the town treasurer to return the $15,700 plus any accrued interest for the refundable fees held to the Lewis Drive subdivision to Mr. John Macaulay, 11 Lewis Drive.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Item B under other business, Old Essex Estate subdivision, Cashman Road, Old Essex Estate LLC request for bond reduction.
Good evening. Jill Mann here on behalf of Old Essex Estates. Last month, I believe that you were presented with a request to extend the bond. It's a surety bond, which is something we don't usually do in Middleton, but they provided you with a surety bond and an extension for another year to basically complete the subdivision. Subdivision is very close to being completed. As you can see from the bond reduction given by Mr. Gibbons, the new DPW, probably not new anymore, huh? The DPW superintendent, there has been a tremendous amount of work completed at this site since the estimate was given, and he has actually authorized a reduction in the amount of recommended, of $272,598. The substantial portion of the work is the contingency, so there's still a $40,000 contingency that exists and a balance of $126,000 to be completed. That basically entails, the final coat of pavement, cleaning out the catch basins and those types of things. You can see what it is on the bond, because I think the board was interested in knowing what the status was of the subdivision. So I figured we could go through that. If you wanted to, we could review the letter from Mr. Gibbons, which it very clearly identifies all the work that has been done. And you can tell that the balance is really finished work, like a retaining wall hasn't been done yet. That was one of the items. Obviously, the final coat of pavement, that's never done until the very end. And then as far as underground utilities, everything's done. The only thing that remains to be planted are actually the trees, and you would wait for that up until the point at which you're going to be almost there, then you'll plant. My guess is those trees probably would go in the fall. That's the best time to plant them to guarantee success. Planting them now would basically guarantee.
Cooking them.
Yeah. So that's an update on the status of it. And then the other reason I'm here is because Mr. McCarthy wanted to actually do a bond reduction. So I still haven't had the bond reduced by the surety. You have to approve it first. So essentially, there still is that $353,000 indemnification from a bonding company. If you were to agree to the bond reduction as recommended by Mr. Gibbons, then the amount of the bond could be reduced to the $126,319. And I think,
Do we have the letter from?
I have Kenny's.
I have 2 copies of the
remember
letter in the
Is there,
correspondence.
I didn't remember seeing that.
So here's Ken. There's Kenny's letter.
Yeah.
Here's the bond certificate.
Yeah, I just received Kenny's letter today
I did
with the
too.
bond reduction, and so
Okay.
that is your explanation
wasn't going
of the
crazy.
work that has been done in
Yeah,
the
that's what I
subdivision.
said too. I'm like, did I miss it in the package?
Yeah,
No.
sorry, I slip
can
those
put
things
repeat.
into your Dropbox sometimes without
Yeah,
letting you
it's,
know.
Kenny was away, everybody was away for that vacation, so that's kind of why, so we were a bit, both Katrina and I were a bit delayed in getting everything to you.
So I'm gonna quickly read this
Yes,
out
please.
loud. Because it's addressed to me from Kenneth Gibbons, Superintendent of Public Works, dated July 9. Old Essex Estates Bond Estimate Reduction. Ken says, I have reviewed the above-mentioned subdivision to establish a bond reduction amount. The developer has installed most of the drainage items, water infrastructure, underground utilities, as well as the binder course of bituminous asphalt on the road. Reduction of 272,598 to a total amount of the remaining of the 126,319 should be sufficient for the remainder of the project. Please note that the developer is required to contribute 20,000 to the sidewalk construction fund before the balance of the bond is released. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to contact. And then he provided us a breakdown. I'm satisfied with the recommendation of the superintendent, but I'll open it up to board members' questions. If anybody has any concerns with the letter.
No.
Nope.
Trust his opinion.
Okay, so I guess we'll entertain a motion to reduce the surety held for Old Essex Estates subdivision from 398,917 to 126,319.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to reduce the,
You could just say so moved,
so moved.
and then we can have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And then you just have to authorize, because it's different, you authorize you to sign sign the reduction certificate.
And let me,
We need an additional motion for that?
Well, the board authorized, there's never been anything them telling you, yeah, sign it. We usually do that.
yeah, usually the board votes to authorize the chairman to sign on their behalf. And you've got 2 copies here without staples or anything to sign.
Bond reduction certificate.
Yes.
Oh, all right, good.
So we'll entertain a motion for the board to allow me as the chair to sign the bond reduction certificate.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't want to get messed up with anything, so these would,
So these are the two.
and then you can take them both notarized.
Yeah, and I'll send them back.
Thank you.
I do have to ask, free act indeed, Mr.
ma'am.
Tierno?
Does it aggravate you when somebody's being funny and says no?
They always do, trust me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Or just a copy, yeah.
All right, number 4, item C, Lightner Way, Greg and Gina Monastero for a minor modification.
Actual reduced bond. Thank you. Okay, so, do you want me to explain?
Yeah, if you and I,
Okay, so, you're familiar with Lightner Way. We just reduced the bond at the board's last meeting. And at that meeting, we talked about that condition, that, there was a disagreement on how
sidewalk.
to fulfill that condition. And the board asked staff to sit down with the developer. We did, and it was very easy to come to an agreement, I think. They are more than happy to have an engineer provide us with engineered plans and do the wetlands permitting for a sidewalk in the same area that they were going to build the sidewalk. And once we have those plans and with the wetlands permitting done, it's pretty simple to apply for grants. I mean, we may have to put some money up, but it at least gets us that stretch of sidewalk, which, as I said last month, is very important because that will be our future rail trail. Because Essex Street ended up being straightened out in that one area where Old Essex comes off, and that's where the old rail bed is. So we need a nice sidewalk there to take the place of the rail trail in that area. And so in the correspondence, there is a draft decision by the board. Now, the board, when they make changes to it, any subdivision, you have to actually think about, is this a major or minor modification first? And so the first vote the board would have to take is whether or not this is a major or minor modification. If the board finds it a minor modification, then they can vote to approve it. If it's a major modification, you have to hold a public hearing and basically open up everything again. And so I suggest that this is a minor modification because the intent of that condition was to get a sidewalk built, and we are moving forward on it. And the developer is working with us too. And I've also run the language of that draft decision by the developer, and you were fine with it, right?
Yes.
Did you want to say anything?
I think, again, I think it's pretty straightforward. When
If
we
you could-
originally.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. If you could just
Greg
state your
Monaster-
name and your
Yeah,
address.
Greg Monastero. I live actually on 12 Lightner Lane.
Thank you.
And actually, so the board, they may or may not be aware, most of the subdivision is my family. So it's myself and my children. I actually moved it. We created most of the street as a family kind of compound. So the street's a private road. Everything has been completed over there, but the sidewalk is something I think that will be great over time. But there was the discussion when we knew what it was going to cost to do and the impacts. That's why we sat down, and Katrina was great working with the town, but we'll take that through the engineering. And I don't think we can find the CAD drawings, so we'll have to digitize and create them. And then we'll bring it through the permitting and, support and help through that process. Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, and the understanding is, once we have those, the permits and the plans, then the board can reduce the bond down to 0, right? I don't think there'll be anything left at that point.
No, I did have a question. I did have a question on it. So I wasn't here for the, when we did the bond reduction. The road's been done for 2 years. It's completely finished. So I know there was a contingency, and I'm not
Yes.
quite sure why the contingent, or why it's still in place after 2 years of the road being done.
Okay, why it's so large?
Yeah.
The board is entitled under their rules and regs to hold that contingency.
Okay.
I guess I think they can hold it for a year after the as-built plans are provided to them.
Okay. That was the question. We do lots of these subdivisions all around, so we usually don't see that once the road's finished and complete. If they
Put it
want
this
to do an
way.
inspection, we can do it.
If they didn't have a contingency and there was only, say you didn't put 3 trees in, and the trees cost $150, and that was left in the bond, most developers would just walk at that point. And so the contingency is kind of just to make sure that they finish those last little items in the subdivision.
Well, it's complete, it's 100% complete, though. That was my question. We did the as-built where it was a private road, we weren't even sure we needed to provide, but it's done. And if you actually go into the subdivision beyond the plans, where it was a private neighborhood for us, everything from the granite curbings, the landscaping is far beyond anything that we're supposed, that was required, but we did, and we
Right.
really, so have no problem if the board wants to go out and do a site tour and then come back, and then at a later date, we ask for it to be reduced. Again, the bond's out for a period, but I just think at this point, that probably it's ready to be reduced.
Right.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned to the board, it's a big contingency because this was an expensive subdivision.
What was the bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
it's-
bridge was $1 million on its own, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really big contingency. The board could entertain reducing that contingency at some point in the future. I'm not sure. I suppose you could come back, or maybe you can think about, once you hit a goal of, the plans are submitted to the Conservation Commission, maybe we can say, once the sidewalk plans are submitted and it's before the Conservation Commission in the permitting phase, why don't you come back in?
Well, I
Is
think,
that,
I find this to be helpful. So if the building superintendent can review it, and make a recommendation, because I don't know how much things cost. I'm not a professional, so, if you're saying it's all done and the building commissioner says, yeah, it's all done to standards and it's a safe road, even a private way, and he says reduce it by X, I'm very inclined to reduce it if the superintendent says,
Okay.
I'm comfortable. I'm speaking for myself, not for everybody on the board, but
But that, it would be again, the building inspector can come out, it's
No, it
it's
isn't building
DPW.
inspector,
It's
DPW.
DPW.
it's DPW. Yeah,
Ken.
no,
Yeah.
the superintendent.
Yep,
or the DPW?
Yeah, that would be
I
great.
tend to agree with that. I think that somebody who's got more hands-on professional experience than we do, and gives us the thumbs up, it would be much
Yeah.
more
More
than reasonable.
satisfactory for us.
Yeah, and I mean, come back next month with something
Sure.
from the DPW, and I have no problem reducing it. I mean,
Great,
that's
More than fair.
fine.
great, thank you.
So you can come back again.
I moved back to town after 12 years now.
Bring donuts.
To be to be completely honest, for this kind of bond reduction, you don't have to come back. I mean, you're welcome to. We always love to have people visit, but if you don't want to waste your time for a bond reduction like this, we can vote on it based on Ken's recommendation, and then get the paperwork over to Katrina, and she'll get it to you. So, yeah, no need to show up for that if we have the numbers. I mean, recommendation is if you have a number in mind, talk to the superintendent, say, this is what we're thinking, what are you thinking? And maybe, he'll come together with a budget and submit it to us.
Sure.
So just so you're in agreement with him and,
That'd be great.
yeah, and then that way you don't have to, you don't have to come back
Yeah,
again.
more than fair. Thank you.
Make a motion to find.
So Tony, you drafted this, or did Katrina draft this?
The
The letter to Eileen?
So there's a
Katrina
draft
does that,
decision.
the draft decision.
So the board has to first motion to find the proposed modification
Minor
to be minor in nature, vote on it, and then vote to approve that modification.
Yeah, and Katrina prepared this sort of in anticipation. I mean,
Yep, we would.
we made the final say, but this was an assumption that we would find that it's minor. Worst case scenario, let's just for everybody's education, if we decided that it was a major modification and we don't have to accept this, we can redraft it and it can be redone this week. Let's just say that we went that way. Again, also for the public at home to understand how these things work, that we're not making this up, and this isn't submitted by the petitioner, this is done by a town professional for our
Yeah.
use, should we decide to use it.
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to find that the proposed modification is minor in nature.
Do we have a second?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Make a motion.
And I'll entertain a motion to approve the
Minor modification.
minor modification, sorry.
Second.
No one
Favor?
motioned yet.
Oh,
What's that?
He said, I'll entertain a motion.
I entertain a motion.
so moved, sorry.
Let me finish. So it's a motion to approve the proposed minor modification. You jumped the gun, that's all. Modification to the Essex Woods Estates definitive subdivision as described above.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We did it right that time.
It gets confusing, all those different motions. You're all set. So I'll talk to Ken. If you send an email requesting a bond reduction, I'll talk to Ken and we'll figure out what, he's comfortable with.
Yeah, and he'll put together a bond estimate. It's probably gonna be a lot shorter than this one, I would assume, based on the items, because it's really finished, so. So, yeah, whatever he says, and I'm sure he'll do an inspection too, it just helps us out.
Sounds great.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a great
you.
evening.
Thank you.
night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
The last thing on the agenda is 4D, the CERD signatures, which we can't do again.
Well, no, you can actually sign it, but you can close the meeting and you can all just sign it after the meeting closes. You don't have to have Paul wait there and.
No, so everybody knows what we're doing though, because we always want to be transparent. The CERD, can you just quickly give a summary of what we're going to sign? What are the CERD signatures?
CERD stands for South Essex Registry of Deeds. Every year, the South Essex Registry of Deeds asks that all planning board members give their signature samples to the South Essex Registry of Deeds so that they can compare the signatures that come in on plans to your signatures. So we do this every June, July. Actually, it's by August, we finally get all the members here. 'cause you're on
Signature,
vacation.
yeah. Yeah, it takes us a few months, so. All right, so we are going to sign that as soon as the meeting closes, just so everybody knows that, the public at home. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Seconded.
We actually don't have to second that one.
Thirded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye.